What if I told you that the difference between being easily forgotten and being constantly thought about is not beauty, not effort, and not availability, but three simple phrases most people are too afraid to say? Because the truth is, the moment you speak in a way that creates curiosity instead of clarity, something shifts in how people respond to you, especially men. Today, you are going to learn three forbidden phrases that don't chase attention, they trigger it. Not because they are magical words, but because they change the emotional temperature of a conversation instantly. And once you understand how and when to use them, you stop over-explaining and start being remembered. Before we go deeper, think about this honestly. Have you ever said something simple, something harmless, and yet it's somehow stuck in someone's mind longer than expected? If yes, then you've already experienced this principle without realizing it. So now the question becomes, what if you could do that intentionally? Stay with me, because the way you speak is either pushing people closer or making them lose interest without you even noticing it. A man does not remember a woman only because of what she said in the moment. He remembers her because of what stayed inside him after she was gone. It is not the exact words that matter most. It is the feeling those words created and the silence that followed when she was no longer there. Sit with that for a second and really think about it. Because many people were taught a completely wrong lesson about attraction and connection. They were told that to make him chase, they must do more, text more, smile more, explain more, prove more, and somehow become louder than every other woman trying to get attention. But that is not what actually creates unforgettable impact in real life or real emotions. The women who leave the deepest mark are not always the loudest in the room or the ones constantly trying to be noticed. They are not begging for attention or forcing chemistry where it does not naturally exist. Instead, they carry something much quieter and much stronger, a calm kind of confidence that does not need approval from anyone else. It is the kind of presence that makes people feel something before they even fully understand what they are feeling. And this is where most people get confused, because they think effort alone creates attraction, when in reality, energy and presence often matter far more than effort alone. If you have ever felt like you gave your time, your effort, your softness, your attention, and even your best version of yourself, yet still received confusing or inconsistent energy back, then stay with this carefully, because what you are about to understand can shift the way you see attraction completely. Not through games or tricks, but through awareness, timing, presence, and the way your energy speaks even when your mouth is silent. Words can be simple on the surface, but when they are delivered with the right calm presence, they echo in someone's mind long after the moment has ended and the conversation is gone. Before this is over, you will start to understand a completely different way of showing up, a way of speaking that does not over-explain, a way of moving that does not chase, a way of being that leaves a memory behind instead of just a moment. Because real attraction is not about doing the most. It is about leaving something behind that quietly stays. Something that lingers in thought, replayed without effort, long after the interaction has ended and life has moved on to something else entirely. Picture a busy street filled with noise, cars rushing past, people talking over each other, everyone trying to be noticed at the same time. Now imagine one person standing in the middle of all that chaos, who is not rushing, not fighting for space, not trying to compete for attention. She is simply there, calm, steady, breathing like she is not affected by the noise around her. That kind of presence stands out immediately because it feels different from everything else. It does not demand attention, yet it naturally receives it because it feels grounded and real. That is the energy people notice first without even realizing it. That is the energy men feel before they can explain it in words. Because attraction is not always created through doing more or saying more. Many times it is created when you stop chasing and start holding your own space with calm confidence. It is in the way you pause before speaking instead of rushing to fill silence. It is in the way you do not feel the need to explain every emotion immediately as it appears. It is in the way you allow moments to breathe instead of panicking and filling them with nervous words or unnecessary explanations. Most people think attention is earned through performance, through trying harder, through proving value repeatedly. But real emotional pull comes from something deeper. It comes from the emotional weight your presence creates naturally. It is not about forcing impact. It is about being someone who creates feeling without even trying too hard or pushing anything unnaturally into place. A man may forget the exact sentence you said. He may forget what song was playing in the background or even what color you were wearing in that moment, but he will not forget how he felt while he was around you. That emotional memory is what stays with him. That is the real foundation of lasting attraction. Not being remembered for a perfect line or perfect moment, but being remembered for the feeling you created inside him without even forcing it. So the real goal is not just to be liked for a few minutes of conversation or attention. The real goal is to be remembered in someone's mind long after the interaction ends, even when you are not physically present anymore, because memory is stronger than moment, and emotion is stronger than logic when it comes to attraction. If you can create the right emotional imprint, you do not need to chase anything. It naturally stays with them in silence and thought. Here is the truth most people completely miss when it comes to attraction and connection. Men do not fall hardest for logic or explanation. They fall for a feeling they cannot easily describe. They remember a mood, a pause, a glance, or a single line spoken at the right moment with the right emotional energy behind it. That is why so many people get frustrated when they try so hard and still do not get the response they expect or hope for. They think being kind, replying fast, showing interest, and giving effort should automatically create connection. So they wonder why it does not always land the way they expect. The reason is simple but often ignored. Emotion does not respond to proof or logic. Emotion responds to experience. If your energy feels tense, he feels pressure. If your energy feels needy, he feels weight. If your energy feels calm, grounded, and playful, he feels drawn in without even fully understanding why. That is the difference between trying to be understood and becoming naturally magnetic in your presence. One approach pushes energy outward desperately. The other creates space and allows connection to form naturally. One says, "Please see my value, please notice me." The other silently communicates, "I already know my value, and I do not need to force it." And that difference is felt immediately, even if nothing is explicitly said out loud in words. This is also where mystery becomes important, but not fake mystery or cold behavior that feels unnatural. Real mystery is simply not revealing everything all at once. It is allowing enough space for someone to feel your depth without you explaining every layer of your personality or emotions immediately. Because when everything is too available and too predictable, curiosity fades. And without curiosity, emotional pull becomes weaker over time instead of stronger. When you master this balance, the dynamic shifts quickly. People are naturally drawn to what they cannot fully define or easily label. In a world filled with constant noise, constant talking, and constant availability, calm presence becomes rare, and what is rare becomes memorable. Not because it is loud or demanding, but because it feels different enough to stay in someone's mind long after the moment has passed and everything has gone quiet again. Think about a song that was not the loudest or the most dramatic one you have ever heard. It did not scream for your attention or force you to listen. Yet somehow, hours later, it is still playing in your mind without effort. That is emotional resonance at work. It does not fight for attention. It quietly takes space in your thoughts and stays there naturally. The same thing happens with people who understand emotional presence and timing. Memorable people are not always trying to outperform everyone around them. They are not constantly proving they are the funniest, the prettiest, the most available, or the easiest to get. Instead, they are focused on creating a feeling that stays. A feeling that cannot be easily replaced or forgotten, because feelings last longer than impressions, and impressions fade faster than most people realize when there is nothing emotionally anchoring them. This is why the real question should never just be, how do I impress him? The better question is, what does it feel like to be around me in this moment? Does my presence feel rushed or calm? Does it feel uncertain or grounded? Does it feel like I need something from him or like I am comfortable in myself? Or does it feel warm, playful, steady, and just slightly intriguing in a way that makes him think more? Because that last feeling is what creates lasting impact. A woman becomes unforgettable when she creates an atmosphere that feels layered. Like there is always something more beneath the surface. Like her silence also carries meaning. Like her smile finishes thoughts instead of just reacting to them. And when that happens, people do not just remember what was said. They remember how the entire experience felt inside them long after it ended. That is strong. People are deeply drawn to those who reflect something back to them that feels rare, emotionally rich, and slightly mysterious in a way that cannot be easily explained. When you say something like, "You have a way of distracting me and you don't even realize it," you are not just giving a compliment in a simple sense. You are planting a subtle question inside his mind, and questions do not leave quickly. They stay longer than answers because the brain keeps returning to them, trying to complete what was left unfinished. That is why mystery is powerful. It does not close emotional loops. It opens them and keeps them slightly active in the background. Attraction is rarely about one big dramatic moment. It is usually built through small emotional echoes that feel natural when spoken, but become unforgettable later in silence. These small lines, these soft expressions, are not about impressing someone in the moment. They are about leaving something behind that continues to move through their thoughts after you are no longer there. So the real skill is not in speaking more, but in speaking in a way that creates space. Space for imagination, space for interpretation, space for him to meet you halfway mentally instead of you carrying the entire emotional direction alone. Now let us go deeper, because another layer of attraction comes from timing and emotional control. When you say something like, "You have a way of distracting me and you don't even realize it," it works not because of the words alone, but because of what they open inside him. It creates curiosity without forcing clarity. It makes him wonder what exactly shifted in that moment. And that curiosity becomes personal. He starts replaying the interaction in his mind, searching for meaning. That is how emotional hooks form naturally, without pressure, without explanation, and without trying to force connection into existence. Mystery works because it leaves emotional space unfilled. And in that space, imagination takes over. People do not fall for full explanations. They fall for unfinished emotional patterns that their mind keeps returning to. So when you speak in a way that does not over-explain your feelings or intentions, you are actually giving the interaction more emotional weight. You are allowing silence tone and timing to carry meaning instead of relying only on words. That is where attraction deepens, because the mind begins to participate instead of just receiving information. Let us talk about another line that carries much more intensity. If I kissed you right now, I know you would not be able to stop me. This is not a casual sentence. It is a statement that only works when the emotional energy between two people is already charged. The power of this line is not in the words themselves, but in the confidence behind them. When said calmly, without nervous energy, it creates a shift in the atmosphere. It introduces tension that is both playful and emotional at the same time, which is where strong attraction often lives. But this kind of line is extremely sensitive to timing. If used too early or in the wrong emotional state, it loses its impact completely and can feel forced or unnatural. That is why awareness matters more than wording. You must feel the rhythm of the moment. You must notice whether the energy between you is already warm, already engaged, already slightly leaning toward connection. Only then does a line like this feel alive. Otherwise, it becomes just words without emotional support, and words without energy fall flat immediately. Attraction behaves like timing, not randomness. Think of it like lighting something in the right environment. A spark in darkness feels powerful, but the same spark in daylight feels unnoticed. That is exactly how emotional timing works. If the moment is not ready, even strong words will not land. But if the moment is already emotionally active, even simple words can feel intense. This is why awareness of emotional timing is more valuable than memorizing phrases or lines. Many people try to create attraction by speaking more, explaining more, or filling silence quickly. But silence is not a problem in connection. Silence is often where emotional weight builds. When you allow a pause to exist without rushing to fix it, you create tension. And tension, when calm and controlled, becomes attraction. It allows the other person to lean in mentally instead of you constantly pushing the interaction forward. A calm pause also communicates confidence. It shows that you are not afraid of space in conversation. You are not trying to control every second with words. You are comfortable enough to let moments breathe. And that comfort changes how you are perceived. People naturally feel more drawn to someone who does not panic in silence because it signals emotional stability. That stability becomes attractive without needing explanation. This is why energy matters more than technique. You can say the perfect line, but if your energy is rushed or uncertain, the impact disappears. On the other hand, even a simple sentence can feel powerful if it is delivered with calm presence and grounded confidence. Attraction is never just about what is said. It is about how it is carried, how it is timed, and how much space is left for the other person to feel rather than just hear. There is also a deeper emotional pattern at play. People are more attracted to what feels slightly incomplete because the mind naturally tries to finish unfinished emotional loops. When you do not fully reveal everything about yourself at once, you create curiosity. When you do not over-explain your feelings, you create space for interpretation. And when you allow your presence to be felt instead of constantly defined, you create depth. In the end, attraction is not something you force, and it is not something you rush. It is something that naturally forms when presence, calmness, and emotional awareness come together in a balanced way. The most memorable people are not those who try the hardest to be noticed, but those who create a feeling that stays even after the moment has passed. What truly lasts is not every word spoken, but the energy behind those words. When you are grounded, patient, and intentional with how you express yourself, your presence becomes more meaningful. You do not need to over-explain, over-prove, or over-perform to leave an impact. Simplicity, timing, and emotional clarity often speak louder than anything else. So the real takeaway is this: Focus less on chasing attention and more on building presence. Let your words carry calm confidence. Let your silence have meaning. And let your interactions unfold naturally without pressure. Because when you are fully present and authentic, you do not need to chase being remembered. You naturally are.